Good afternoon, everyone. ICI Pragya Jain, on behalf of Professional Skill Enrichment Committee, ICI welcome all the participants in today's webcast on the art of persuasion, public speaking, skill that drive influence. I welcome today's resource person Bhavna Kumari ji, another present over here. And it's a great privilege to me to introduce today's speaker Bhavna Kumari ji. She is an innovative learning and development leader with over 25 years of progressive experience in crafting high impact learning ecosystem, designing leadership program and conducting immersive training intervention certified in NLP, instructional design, neuroscience of learning, and physiology with extensive facilitation experience for ICI, corporate and academic institution. She published author and passionate mentor committed to cultivating inclusive, high performing learning environment. She authorized the book Aim High, Unleash the Potential of Effective Learning, published on Amazon, focused on scientific and physiological techniques for learning transformation. Great, madam. So once again I welcome you, Bhavna Kumari ji, here in this webcast, and the webcast is all yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, CA Pragya. Thank you, Dr. Sambit. And I welcome all of the participants to this wonderful session, which I'm sure which is going to be, right? And we will all make this a great success with your participation. So thank you so much, CA Pragya, for the wonderful introduction. And let's go ahead. I'll quickly share my screen with all of you. I hope it is visible. Sure. So, as we know, the topic is art of persuasion, public speaking skills that drive influence, right? So, we are very specifically, we're talking about what is the persuasion, what is art of persuasion, and how we can actually influence with whom we are meeting through our speaking skills. So, before I go ahead, I want to ask you a question, and the question is, what comes to your mind when you think of persuasion? Right? You will have to quickly scan the QR code, which is just appearing on my screen. Or we can go to slido.com and you can just type hash 3298594. I want everyone to participate, be an active learner, not a passive learner. So whatever is coming to your mind, just write. It could be anything. Maybe some people think persuasion as manipulation, some think as selling, some think as influence. So whatever is coming to your mind, I want to see those words coming here. It will take few seconds, scan the QR code, or you can just go to slido.com and type in the code 328-3298594. So when you hear this word, I repeat, persuasion, what is the first word which comes to your mind? Can you see some answers here? Quickly, my friends. Only then we can learn, right? And this is the way through which we can interact. This is the screen through which we can interact with each other. So whatever comes to your mind, just write. It could be anything. No answer is right or wrong. And your name is not featuring here. It is only wow, wonderful. I could see that. Impact is something, yes. Persuasion means impact because we want to see the action which is coming out of the discussion or negotiation, right? Some more words, please, popping into. We are not judging here anyone. We are not scoring anyone. We just want to see that how you are responding and are you actively listening, right? Convincing, super. Some more response before you move ahead. I repeat, what comes to mind when you think of the word persuasion? Right? Influence, impact, convincing, very true, could be selling as well. Leading other person to the desired outcome. Super, very well said. Influence. Yes, thank you so much for the responses. I'm really thrilled to see these responses. Right? So this way we can interact through the screen. Thank you so much. Let's wow, positive attitudes. Wonderful. Wonderful. So let's move ahead and see that what we're going to learn today. So, and kindly take a note of few points which I'm sharing. I'm sure if you'll implement this, you will be able to definitely impact others. So you will be able to take action at the end of your discussion or conversation or meeting, right? So what we're going to learn today is, first is we're going to understand what is the power of persuasion, the ELP way. I've put the acronym so that you will remember it, and we will talk about this in great detail in the upcoming slides. Second is we are going to apply persuasive speaking techniques. We'll see that what are the techniques which makes our public speaking more persuasive. Third is we're going to enhance our presence and credibility, right? Fourth learning objective of the session is we want you to learn, and definitely you will be able to, once the session gets over, you'll be able to craft or shape some of the compelling stories or analogies and examples. And definitely, my friends, you will be able to handle resistance. You will be able to handle questions in a more effective manner, right? So we are moving ahead, and we are going to see some of the images which is coming to your screen. First, you can see there is an image where any one of you is presenting audit findings. Some more, and I want you to reflect on this. There is an image I'm sure you can make out here. One of the politicians is communicating with people and trying to communicate that why you should vote for me, right? This is a very common scene which we come across. Now you can see the other page is saying salespeople suggesting customers to choose their product over competitors' offering. So why should you buy my product? Why you should not buy a competitor's product? She's explaining that. There is one person who's wearing the mask, and you are addressing people that why should you wear mask, why is it required. So these are some examples which we face day in day out, right? Some more, you're convincing a client during tax planning, and you're handling some of the questions, you are responding to the questions in a more effective manner. Now, can you just think of a word, what is happening in all these scenarios? How do you reflect on this? I'm sure you must have thought of. These are those situations which we come across day in, day out. And in all these situations, what we are doing is we are persuading others. So the skill which you're applying is persuasion. So it not only happens in a professional life, but then it happens in a personal life as well. When we are communicating with our partner, with our spouse, with the kids, with the parents, or the kid is communicating with you, most of the time it happens both ways. And most of the time, the communication which we are doing is actually persuasion, right? So what is persuasion? Persuasion is also a kind of communication. And let's quickly see what is communication, right? I hope you're taking a note as well. And this is a very basic question. What is communication? Communication, we know it is exchange of ideas, thoughts, and opinions. It could be from one to one, or it could be one to many, or many to one, right? So it is exchange of ideas and thoughts in plain, simple words. We know there are different kinds of communications: verbal communication, non-verbal communication, right? We know verbal communication, it happens when we are talking, it is through words. And when we are writing, through body language, all written communications, these are all non-verbal communication, we all know. And non-verbal communication, it really plays important role. You know, when we are communicating, what is the percentage of our body language in a face-to-face conversation? I'm sure you're aware of it is 58%, my friend. 58% of our body language contributes to communication process in a face-to-face conversation, right? Now, I'll not get into the details of communication. The point here I'm making is that what is the reason we communicate? We all know this. The reasons we communicate, because we want to understand, for example, the need of others. This could be our need. When I say need of others, others could be my family members also, others could be my clients, could be internal customer or external customers. Why I'm using these two words, internal, external? Internal is, it could be if I'm working in a corporate, so internal customer could be any of the departmental heads or somebody who is working with me, maybe my colleague. But then if I'm working with a client, client is my external customer. So the reasons there are many reasons we communicate from the time we wake up in the morning till the time we go to sleep. During sleep also we communicate. We know that. That's a different ballgame altogether. We communicate with ourselves, right? We communicate the subconscious mind. So there are many reasons. And as I said, understanding the needs of our colleagues or clients or family members. If we want to inform someone, right? If we want to exchange our opinions, if we want to share our ideas or any proposal, or if we want to engage with our clients or with our friends, we want to develop relationships, and I'm talking about all kinds of relationships. If you want to respond to questions, if you want to ask questions, right? And the reason we communicate, if we want to persuade, and that is the biggest chunk of it. Essentially in our role as chartered accountants, the communication which we are doing is essentially, most part of it, I would say, is persuasion. A leader, when is communicating, is essentially, I would say, is persuasion, right? Because as a leader, as a chartered accountant, what do? At times, you persuade your teams to work towards a common goal. You persuade with clients, maybe you're in a discussion to propose a new financial strategy, or maybe you want him to hike your fees, right? So there are many situations wherein we actually get into an hour of persuasion, right? So let's see what are the components of persuasion, how can we implement, how do we relate to it, why it is important for us. So, what is persuasion? This is really important. Persuasion, as we saw, it is a kind of communication, and the whole idea of having the persuasion is that we want the person with whom we are communicating, or with to whom we are persuading, we want the change in the action. We want the person to change his thought process, or maybe his attitude or behavior towards a particular thing, right? So it is actually, if you see, it is our ability to affect the actions or decisions or thoughts of others, right? I repeat, persuasion is an ability, it is our ability to personally affect the actions, thought process, decisions, and opinions of others, so that it leads towards an action, right? Somebody has mentioned action also, one more which when I asked for. So action here is very important, right? So at the end of the entire discussion, conversation, what is happening? Is the person agreeing to take action, right? If yes, then persuasion has happened. We'll see the components and all, and we'll get to know that how we can reach to the action thing, right? So persuasion is, this also allows us to get things done and achieve desired outcomes. Desired outcomes, it should be a win-win, right? Because if it is only I win and you lose, that way we can say this is not persuasion. Maybe it's a manipulation or distortion of facts, right? So we should present our logic or emotions or credibility. We'll see all these in details in the coming slide, right? We should use these components so that we can achieve a win-win situation, so that we can achieve desired outcomes. Let's see, okay, what is persuasion not? Before we saw what is persuasion, but what isn't. It isn't only about selling. It is not about manipulation. It is about aligning the logic, the facts, the figures, right? Our credibility, which is our trust, with our clients. When I say clients, internal, external, both I'm talking about, I'm referring to the all gamut of clients, right? To all the CAs, whether you are in practice or you are working with corporate. So it is aligning our logic, which is backed up by the facts and figures, our credibility, our presence, and emotions, to help others see value in whatever we are conveying or whatever we are saying is right. If you're saying we should go for this strategy or this proposal, why is it okay that we should go for it? So you should back it up with facts and figures, with your credibility. When I say credibility, it is about your knowledge, your competency, your expertise, and what kind of emotional connect, we'll talk about this as well, you have with the clients, so that they're able to see that, okay, whatever you're saying, you are actually adding value to it, and we should go ahead with this proposal, or we should go ahead with this financial strategy, right? So as I said, I'm just repeating, as CAs, we use persuasion every day in our personal life, in our professional life, with three components, that is data, logic, and integrity, right? Data, logic, and integrity, as I said, and emotions as well. Let's see how it is. This is really amazing and this very old concept. This was published in HBR, also Harvard Business Review. I've quoted here in the month of July 2019. And you can also search if you're interested, because our outcomes depends on the way we persuade others, right? So this is a very old technique. As I said, this was given by Aristotle, right? One of the Greek philosopher we all know. He outlined a formula that how can we master art of persuasion. And this was published in his book Rhetoric, in his work Rhetoric. And this is around more than 2000 years ago. You can imagine how old it is. And it's still valid, still useful, and we all apply this, right? So the acronym which have, there is no sequence to it, my friends, but then yes, the acronym I have given so that it's easy for you to remember. ELP, the power of persuasion, the ELP way. Now, what is ELP? You can see here. E stands for ethos, right? L stands for logos. Please take a note of it if you really want to apply this later. And P stand for pathos. So what is actually ethos? We'll see this in more detail with more examples and activities. Ethos is our credibility. How competent am I to deliver this message or deliver this presentation or or to convince my clients on doing something new, maybe changing a process, right? Or as I said, maybe having a new strategy in place, right? So it is about my credibility, my competency, my knowledge, expertise. Ethos relates to credibility. Now, what kind of data, facts, and figures and dashboards I have to back up my thought process? That is logos. And there comes very important element, that is pathos, right? That is emotions. So how do we relate to the emotions? We'll see this also, because emotions mostly we think about is more about when we are talking about personal relationship. But then no, my friends, it is actually valid in personal, not only in personal, but in professional lives as well, right? Because we all are emotional at heart. You know, when we take decisions, we first take decisions through emotions. You can search for this. And then we back up our decisions through logic. But then initially, our brain works that way. It has been evolved in that way that whenever we take a decision, first we take it emotionally and then we back this up with logic, right? So that was only good to know information. Coming back to this, uh, let's talk more about the three components: ethos, pathos, logos, which was given by, as I said, Aristotle, a Greek philosopher. So we are talking about this timeless model, which has been there for more than 2000 years ago. And what happens when we apply all this in conjunction? So first is, as I said, ethos. It talks about our credibility. So this establishes our expertise, and this can't be built over time. I mean, this can't be built over night. This has to go over time. People know you. Okay, this person is trustworthy. This person is my trusted advisor, which is our role, right? This person has helped me to save my organization or to save XYZ amount of cost, right? And he has helped me in many ways. So over a period of time, when you interact with your customers, with your clients, you have a kind of rapport. You share a rapport with your clients, and this is how you build your credibility. Right? So sharing relevant experience, relevant subject matter expertise, and your knowledge, this establishes you as a credible person, right? And whenever you think, because we all do that, we work in favor of our clients in an ethical way, and they know that how much knowledgeable are you. That's the reason they stick with you, right? So This slowly and gradually you build over a period of time, and they know that, okay, this person is qualified, this person is the subject matter expertise, and this person is credible. So this is something which is like a homework, which is which you need to do before you try to persuade your clients or anyone else for that matter, I'm saying. And this happens over the period of time you build it, right? Even with one instance, you get the faith of your client that, okay, yes, this person is credible enough. Now, if we talk about another component, which is logic, which is logos. So as I said, when we are presenting any proposal, we should back this up with data, with reasoning, with dashboards, right? With the facts and figures, with the arguments. So this helps us in convincing our client to get the result. So one is you should be credible enough. Second is you should have sufficient data to back it up, right? The logic which we are, the proposal which we are presenting. Now, how will you connect with client through emotions? That is pathos. So what do? You actually use some kind of stories, some kind of examples, scenarios, right, which resonates emotionally with your client. Then we'll see some more examples. You know what happens? We all are innately drawn to stories. We all, because we have evolved in that way, right? So during uh, during the evolution time I'm talking about is good to know information when even the language was not evolved. Maybe the body language was used to communicate uh, what they used to do. They used to sit around the fire, right? And they used to share the stories. Okay, acha, today I went for hunting and I was able to hunt this animal, for example. They had to share. So what they used to do, because hunting was the only way through which they can eat. I mean, they can feed themselves. So they used to sit around the fire and they used to share the stories. This is how our brain is evolved. So that's the reason we all love many movies, serials, right? Netflix and Prime. These are all selling what they're selling. They're selling stories. So, my friends, selling is such an important thing in any kind of conversation, I will say, which will lead you to the desired outcome, through which you can grab attention of your audience. Because attention span is decreasing day by day, we all know that, right? For example, even we don't want to spend few seconds in a shorts, we swipe like this, right? So the point I'm making is we all are innately drawn to stories, examples, scenarios, analogies. So when you use this, we build more strong connect with our clients, right? So this is how I'll share the examples as well in great detail, and I will ask you to identify also that what are the components which has been used in the coming slides. So as of now, I'm telling you these are the three components: ethos, logos, pathos, and this is the whole chunk of persuasion. This is the component element which helps you to make a persuasive argument, right? An example here, if you can see, I'm sure it's visible, uh, very clearly mentioned when we are pitching internal control improvements. What we should ideally do, we should combine our audit expertise, which is being credible as ethos, with the emotional impact of potential losses, right? So if we talk about, say, for example, your investors are happy, or you have the impact of potential losses, all these are examples of connecting through emotions. And concrete data showing cost benefit analysis, that is logos. So what you did here, I repeat the example and please pay attention here. When pitching internal, this is one of the examples. When pitching internal control improvements, we should combine our audit expertise, which is an element of ethos, with the emotional impact of potential losses, which is the component of pathos, and concrete data showing cost benefit analysis, which is a component of logos. right? So what are you doing? You're balancing all three. And this is actually balanced persuasion when you are using all three, right? Which is ethos, credibility, logos, logic, pathos, connection. So that makes compulsive, I would say, very persuasive argument. Not only argument, it could be any kind of negotiation, discussion, proposal, right? So try to have all these elements. So before presenting your idea, think that am I integrating all these elements? If not possible, minimum of two is a must, right? Minimum of two is a must to make it persuasive argument. And if you include all, so the chances of winning is really, really high. Now see some more examples. Uh, in the all the three elements, because I wanted you to internalize these concepts, because persuasion is mainly the ELP way only, right? So as we have discussed already, ethos is more about building trust, and this happens through integrity, credentials, your subject matter expertise, your professionalism, right? Uh, and as I said, your audience means, for example, your clients, they have this trust that you're the one who is qualified to propose, who is qualified to speak, who is qualified to share your thoughts, right? So, for example, one of the example here, based on our audit findings, across 50 plus manufacturing clients and current industry standards, we recommend XYZ, right? So it shows that you are highly credible. You are the one who has got expertise on the subject matter. Right? Similarly, now I'm talking about the logic and data, this logos part of it. We should be using a reasoning backed up by evidence, data, facts, and figures to support our arguments with the facts which nobody can refute, with a reliable source of data, right? So the example here is the variance analysis shows 14% deviation in overhead costs, indicating potential efficiency gains of 1.2 crores annually. So whenever you will talk about gains and losses, it immediately catches the attention of our clients. And there we are able to build the connect, because you have backed up your data with the facts, with the figures, 14% deviation, 1.2 crore gains, right? So this is how you're building connect. And then emotional connect is by showing the empathy, by understanding that uh, how do you feel, what kind of pain are you going through. So the client should understand that, okay, the person has kept himself in my shoes and looking at the scenario from my angle, right? So connecting emotionally, it starts with empathy. Empathy is about, we all know in one line definition, if you have to say, empathy is about keeping yourself in other shoes, which means looking at the scenario from their understanding, through their eyes, right? So that you can understand the pain points, the areas that what are they struggling with. So yeah, how we've given examples is imagine the relief and pride. So these are what? These are all words which connects with you emotionally. Imagine the relief, the word pride, right? Your investors will feel when your reports reflect complete transparency. Without, if I just share this example without these words, it will not make much impact. Say for example, if I only say that your reports reflect complete transparency, it will not make much sense. But then if I add the word, imagine the relief and pride your investors will feel when your reports reflect complete transparency. So the keywords here are relief and pride. This is how you're building emotion connects with your audience, right? So we just saw the balance persuasion is more about connecting all these three elements of persuasion. I'm sure by this time you have got a good understanding of ethos, logos, and pathos, right? Any questions? Maybe you can share through moderator if you want. I mean, I hope we are in sync by at this time, till this time. I wanted to share some more examples here, right? And these are scenarios which we face day in, day out in our profession. Say, for example, the first scenario is like we are presenting the audit findings, right? And this is you're presenting the audit findings to the senior management, say, for example, or audit committee. The purpose of persuasion here is you want to get buy-in for the process improvement, or you want them to take some kind of um, corrective action. So, what is the right way that we can approach? I would first ask you or request you to think about it, and then you can have a look here. You can see the example is and how the elements are integrated. This says that if we implement this control now, or maybe some kind of corrective action which we want them to take, we can save rupees 3 crore in potential leakages next quarter. So what we did here, we are blending two elements here. One is logos, another is pathos. Logos is logic we know. So when we are giving data, rupees 3 crore, this is how we are integrating logos. And if you're saying we can save, and here there is another word, potential leakages. So that is more related to emotions, emotional appeal, that is pathos. So we've integrated these two things, and the person who is saying this, client is aware of the subject matter knowledge, the credentials of the person who's proposing this, right? So ideally, it's a blend of all three, ethos, pathos, and logos, right? Now, second scenario, again, we face this. We mostly have to convince our client during tax planning. And it could be to anyone, could maybe to CFO or to business owner, right? And the whole purpose is that so that we can convince them to adopt a compliant yet beneficial structure. How can we influence? So the example, we should be using all three elements again here. See here, this isn't about just saving the tax. We can say it's about building investors' confidence. And how are we building? We're building it through transparency. So we are using here ethos, pathos, and since the number is not here, that's the reason I've not included logos, right? So you can see in the other examples also, when we're negotiating for deadlines, negotiating with fees, this could be with client or a partner, even with our teams also, when we're negotiating with our team for the deadlines, right? So how we can put, or about fees, how can we justify? So we need to justify the scope, our workload, our value. So the example here is our fee reflects not just ours, it is not only about the ours, but the assurance your investors get. The cost of confidence is lower than the cost of risk, right? So, how we are articulating the components of persuasion, that makes a lot of impact. I'm sure you're in sync with my thought, and I'm very much sure that if you apply it, you are going to have a win-win situation at the end of the discussion. Similarly, when you're leading a finance team, when you're presenting to the board, for example, when you're presenting to the board, to board of directors, and say, example here is like the purpose is to gain approval for a strategy or for a new policy. So, how you can propose is by adopting this accounting framework will not only ensure compliance but also enhance market perception, right? So, it talks again about the logos and the ethos. So, you'll see, I mean, when you're articulating, these things will pop up automatically once you start applying or using it, right? So I've taken some examples, some more examples also I've taken. Uh, I'll quickly take you through this. For example, most of us, I mean, this is again a common thing that we handle resistance during an audit, right? And this could be from department heads, if you're talking about internal clients, this could be from process owners. The idea is that how can we reduce the defensiveness and encourage the cooperation part? So we want that they should cooperate more, and we should also cooperate. I mean, ideally, the idea is to gain win-win situation. So what we can say, see, I'm not saying that, see, exactly this is an example of persuasive approach. You can have your own customized persuasive approach depending on your context. The only idea here I'm sensitizing you is use all elements of persuasion, right? Only then you can influence your clients, right? So one example is like, we are not questioning your work, we are strengthening the system that protects your department. So again, we're using pathos and ethos, right? And there are many other, for example, when you're writing opinions or reports. So see here, we've mentioned based on Indus 109, this treatment not only aligns with compliance, but also reflects fair presentation to stakeholders. Again, we're using the components of persuasion, right? One more I'm taking here, for example, educating non-finance stakeholders. That is also uh, one of the important things which we come across almost on a regular basis. So the idea here is to explain the complex accounting in a very simple layman terms, right? So what we can do, one example is, think of deferred revenue like prepaid rent. So it is about like, what else have been used here? Any idea? So it is when we use something as an example, which is related to the point which you're making, is also called as analogy. We all know, right? So this is using the element of analogy, which I was talking about, stories, analogies, through which you can build emotional connect, right? So we are building an emotional connect here so that the person can understand. So we can say, think of deferred revenue like prepaid rent. So it's like a money received before the service is provided, right? So now the person has understood. Since the person is from non-finance background, is you have made him understand in a very simple layman language, and you're using pathos and logos here. I hope with this example, now the elements of persuasion is more clear, right? If you have any questions, you can ask me in the last. You can share this with the moderator, and I will be more than happy to answer, right? If there is anything which is coming to your mind, any other examples which you can think of, right? So these were only examples, as I said. And the lines which I mentioned was my approach of defining. Yours could be anything depending on your situation or your context. Only idea is that you should be using all three elements: ethos, pathos, logos for persuasion, if you want to get your things done, if you want to reach to a win-win situation, or if you want the audience or the other party to take action, right, or to follow your thought process. Now, there is one more question where I want that if you could just scan the QR code or go to slido.com, type in hash 3298594, and click which one is the right option according to you. And there is no right and wrong answer. As I said, all answers are right, all answers are wrong. So according to you, I'm asking you, which situation as a chartered accountant you find most challenging? I'm just trying to understand, is it convincing a client? Very difficult. Is it presenting to management? Very difficult. Or is it handling the difficult situations at the end of the presentation, or keeping your audience interested? Which you think is very challenging according to you, right? So just scan the QR code or go to slido.com and enter the code 3298594. I want to see some responses quickly, please. There's also to check whether you're listening or not, whether you are attentive, whether you are an active learner or a passive learner. I want to see some responses here. Okay, handling difficult questions, 100%. Okay, how many of you have responded? I can make out that, but then I will not do it. Okay, okay, for some it is keeping your audience interested. True, superb. So some of you are saying handling difficult questions, you find it most challenging. Okay, some more responses. Convincing a client. Okay, so mix of all, right? So presenting to management at times. Wow, lovely. Very happy to see your responses. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone who's responding, and thank you to all for paying attention. So for sure, you're able to see that you can apply this. You're finding it relevant, right? Superb, superb. So a mix of all, probably the higher rating in this audience is handling difficult question, okay? And rest is convincing a client, keeping your audience interested, and presenting to management. We will cover all these. Thank you so much for sharing this, for your enthusiastic response. I really appreciate. Okay, so moving ahead, now I want you to scan this QR code. There is a case which I mentioned on the Google form. I want you to spend 2 minutes reading it and share a response, please. Because as I said, I did not want this to be only one way. I wanted this to happen both ways. And that's the reason we're connecting through this platform. Please scan this QR code, go to the Google form. This will direct you to the Google form automatically. You will not have to go. You scan this, and I'll open my Google form so that I can see that how many responses are we getting. We are not asking for your email ID or your name. These are all anonymous. So we can just see that how you are responding to it, right? So there's a case which talks about that the elements of persuasion has been used or not. First thing, if it has been used, what are the components and how it has been used, so that you can relate to this to your real life. And this will give you in-depth understanding. You can internalize that how you can utilize this in your real life. Right? So I hope you have scanned this. To scan this QR code, it will redirect you to the Google form where you can read the case, which is in the form story, right? Which you can very much relate to, write your responses. I'll stop sharing this and I'll go to Google Form. I'll wait for another 30 seconds so that all of you can get a chance to scan the QR code. Please read this, read the story which is mentioned once, which you get to see after scanning, and share responses. As I said, my friends, there's no right or wrong answer. It's only about learning, right? And learning is an experience, we all know. So I'll stop sharing here and I'll go to Google Form. Just and I can see your responses there. The case of the missing millions. The name of the story is. I'm sure you'll find it very exciting. Let me share my screen. Should I read this out for you? Okay, I've got two responses already. Wow, so nice. Four responses. Okay. First, okay, identify the elements. I wanted, okay, you to identify the elements of ethos, pathos, and logos. And if you can write where they have applied, that would be really great. If you could. Okay, so somebody says ethos and pathos, unethical practice. Okay, very good. Professional skepticism. Wonderful. Some more responses coming in. Very happy to see the responses, which means you're actively engaged in the learning process. Okay, some more responses, please. I request all of you. Just read it. You will see that how CA Ria, right? Ria Mehta, how she has dealt with the case and how she has applied the elements of persuasion. Some more responses, at least one response from every person should come ideally. Quickly, please. And this is going to help you because this is something which is very much relatable. This is something which we face day in, day out. So you should be able to see that where is she applying? Is she applying persuasion or not? If she's applying, where is she applying ethos? Where is she applying pathos? And where is she applying logos? Wow, superb. There is one more answer which has come and a good one. Credibility in study of the accounts. Very good. Knowledge of the subject matter. Superb. Okay. And pathos is cross-check with the team. Okay. Good. So these are things which you have picked up from the case study that I really appreciate. And now I want to share. Okay, I'll wait for a few more seconds before I share my thoughts on the case. Quickly, please. Because until unless you are engaged, you will not be able to internalize. It will be of no use. Oh, let me see. Okay, now we have 8 responses. Cross check with the team. Pathos, logos is data charts, approvals, policy clauses. Superb. 11 responses. Wow. Ethos when demonstrate professionalism in presenting scenario. Logos when providing charts and predictions. Wonderful, wonderful. Very well, which means you have read and you have analyzed it. You can make out. Yes. Logos, data charts. Wonderful. Now, let me share my thoughts, and I request all of you to just pay attention to what I'm saying. Whatever you're saying is absolutely right. I will just add to it, right? So as you've read, this is about the story of missing millions. Why we say missing millions? Because we're talking about the final week of March, and there was a team, an internal audit team. This was led by CA Riya Mehta, and what she was doing. She was reviewing the vendor payments for a large manufacturing client, right? For her, she looked if everything came to or seemed like absolutely fine until she saw one small entry which caught her eye, right? And what was that entry? Entry was about 1200 payment labeled miscellaneous vendor adjustment. Let me again go to your responses. 13 responses. Wow, superb. I'm just putting this here so that we can refer it to, right? So everything looked fine until one small entry, as I said, caught her attention, and this was 12 rupee 1200 payment. This was labeled as miscellaneous vendor adjustment. Now, ideally, what happens? I mean, it's a natural human tendency that we immediately jump to conclusion, but then Ria did not do that. What she did is she calmly told the CFO that we've completed 30 plus vendor reconciliation across similar manufacturing units this year, and this entry pattern is something which I found unusual. So I would like to trace it back to the source, right? So, and while talking, her tone was factual. And if you notice, when she's saying that we have completed 30 plus vendor reconciliation, which means I have the experience, which means I have the subject matter expertise, which shows I'm credible. So ethos is done, right? So this is how you build your ethos because you've done it already. Now, while talking, she was very professional, she was factual and confident. And I've bold it also. She used her experience and expertise, not emotion here, right? Here we're not using emotion. What we're using here is ethos, that is credibility, to build trust in our judgment. When Rio pulled the ledger trail, they were able to find a pattern. What was the pattern? The pattern was 16 entries over 6 months, each under rupees 2000. So that was a small amount, but then the frequency was high, right? all were booked under different vendor names. And the person who signed it, she could see same initials, so same approval's initial, right? What she did, she presented her findings very logically. Each transaction seems very small, very minor, but collectively this totals rupees 9.8 lakhs. So the pattern indicates, so there's a pattern first of all, and this pattern indicates deliberate fragmentation, possibly why to bypass approval limits because we need approvals for high amounts. For smaller amounts, we don't need that much approval, right? So she showed the data charts, approval thresholds, and policy clauses. And this allows the number to speak for themselves. So what she did, she is backing up her argument with data. She has a data charts. She is talking about the approval threshold also. So maybe till 2000 we don't need any approval. And she had the data that the signature of approval is the same. So what she did, then she paused and said gently, not aggressively. Say how we communicating. It's an assertive communication, not aggressive, right? Because there are different styles of communication also. We know passive, aggressive, assertive. Assertive always leads to win-win situation. Wherein what you do, I'm not getting into it, but then I'm just telling you in one line. Assertive communication, it talks about I'm putting my point across and I'm allowing others also to put his or her point across. And mutually we try to reach to a win-win outcome. It is not about win-lose or lose-win. Okay. Um, so then she paused and said gently, this isn't about rupees 9.8 lakh, right? This is about something deeper. What is that thing deeper? Now see how she's presenting. The trust this company has built over 40 years. So it is not about the amount, but it's more about trust. What does trust relate to? Trust relates to the emotion part of it. This pathos of persuasion. We all know, right? So the trust this company has built over 40 years is about that. Every small lapse weakens that trust. So imagine how your employees feel when leadership models transparency. Imagine how investors view a company that acts before being forced to. So the virtual room went wide. In that moment, she moved the audience from compliance to conscience. Why? How? By using the elements of persuasion, right? Uh, I would like to spend a couple of more minutes on this because this is something through which we can learn that during our audits or while proposing something new, how we can use the elements of persuasion, right? So, if you see the three elements, ethos is when she is referring the audit experience calmly. What she is doing? She said that I have done the audit of similar kind of audits of similar kind of manufacturing firms, right? This year only, right? So how much she's mentioned a number as well, and this is what she is doing through this by conveying this. She is building credibility and trust. When she's showing the data pattern in reasoning, what she's doing, she is building logos. The effect is she is able to convince them logically, right? And when she talked about trust and values, she is touching pathos. And what she did, the effect is she could inspired emotional commitment, right? So we should try to include all these three pillars or three components I've been telling you about the persuasion, right? So within what happened after this case, within a week, the company implemented this new approval workflows and vendor audit controls. And the CFO later, he mentioned that we did not act because of the data alone. It's not only because of logic. We acted because you made us care about what the data meant, right? So it is not only about getting the data, but deriving meaningful insights which can have the elements of pathos, ethos, right? So that it can influence your audience to take an action. Data can be processed by AI also in today's world, right? But then is it AI can't give you judgment. The judgment has to come from us. We all know that, right? So I wanted to ask you that you can think in your mind which pillar like ethos, pathos, or logos do you naturally use most often? Think about it. Do you only use only one? You use only two? You use all three? Think about it. And which one could you develop further to make your persuasion more compulsive, more compelling, more complete? Right? Let me repeat some question which goes to the audience. And the question is, which pillar out of three, ethos, pathos, and logos, it's a matter of self-reflection, a self-reflect. Which pillar do you naturally use most often? I'm very much sure earlier when I was not aware of, I was also using only one. I was thinking if I'm presenting it logically, everyone should be convinced, but it does not happen all the time. I have to use pathos also, I have to use ethos as well, right? So I want to ask you, which one do you think you can develop further so that you can make your persuasion more compelling? So persuasion is not about being louder. It's about being more truer, being more true. So we should combine the credibility part, which already most of us we have it, right? Chartered accountant means they're credible itself, I would say, because when people hear, they can completely relate the tag with being more credible. So let's combine credibility with clarity and connection. Connection is emotional connection, and your message, I'm sure, will become irresistible. Your message will be compelling, right? So when we've learned these three elements, let's start using it. Reflect and purposely when you're next time when you're proposing something, yeah, right, you're convincing on something, or you want somebody to take action on something, right? Because all these results in change in behavior or thoughts or actions. Think that which I'm using the most currently, where do I need to improve? That has to come from you. Okay, now quickly see one video, whatever we've seen. So I will show you a very small video and I'm sure you will enjoy it.
In this video, we're going to talk about three related concepts from Aristotle: ethos, pathos, and logos. And if you've not yet been exposed to this kind of material, it will absolutely help you take your next presentation up a notch. So let's get into it. Hello again, friends. I'm Alex Line, and if you've never subscribed to Communication Coach, this channel, I encourage you to do so. This channel is here for rising leaders, people like you, to help you increase your personal impact so you can lead the people around you to higher levels of excellence. And one of the ways we do this on the channel is by presentation skills. And today we're going to look at three related concepts: ethos, pathos, and logos. These have, even though they're textbook type concepts, they have direct application for you as a speaker, and you can use these right away. So let's unpack these each and show you how you can apply them. The first is ethos, and that means your personal credibility as a speaker. Now, a lot of times people think that because ethos looks like the word ethics, that's all it means. And that's part of it, obviously. As a speaker, you have to have good character. You also, however, have to be an expert. You have to have credentials. You have to be qualified to speak in a way that people would want to listen to you. Very few of us have a public reputation already, and so one of the ways you can do this in your presentations is if you're being introduced by somebody before you speak, make sure the person introducing you has a little bit of information about your background so they can position you as someone worth listening to. If you don't have someone introducing you, then you want to talk about any research that you've done to prepare for this presentation, any personal experience or connection that you have to the topic. You want to position yourself as someone that has ethos, someone that has the credibility, the believability, so that people will want to listen to you. And you can almost always do this right in the introduction of your presentation. Let's turn now to pathos. Pathos is where the speaker appeals to the emotions of the listeners. So you want to use things like vivid language, metaphors, and probably the most effective way that we can reach into the hearts of our listeners is through personal stories. You can tell stories about your own personal experiences, or you can tell stories about other people's experiences. There's nothing like a story to engage our hearts and get us personally involved in. It's almost like a story transports us into the moment, and that's a great way to appeal to your audience's emotions. So when you're presenting next, make sure as you're looking at your outline that you have enough personal examples and little stories to bring people into that emotional dimension of your presentation. So now let's talk about logos. Logos, because it looks like the word logic, a lot of people think, oh, that just means logic, but there's a lot more to it than that. In fact, you want to think about it in terms of using evidence and reason to construct your speech. You want to develop your presentation around a series of facts and statistics and good, reasonable evidence. And one of the ways you can do this in a presentation and make it work for you is make sure you have a tight relationship between your claim, that's your thesis, the thing you're trying to demonstrate, and the evidence you're using. If you're claiming one thing and then you have to stretch your evidence to fit it, people are going to start to notice that, and they're not going to be as willing to be brought along or convinced by your message. So make sure you're thorough in your research and you integrate that good, high-quality research into your presentation. Then your presentation will have good logos. So that way you have ethos, pathos, and logos. You're going to be way more persuasive overall as a speaker. Question of the day: what are your thoughts about how to establish any of these three in your next presentation? I would love to hear your comments and your tips below. I learn a lot from reading your comments, so I look forward to reading those in the future. So thanks, God bless, and I will see you in the next video.
I hope you all liked it. And this was what we have been talking about. Okay, let me reshare my presentation. Give me a moment. Okay, now we will relate this to public speaking and influence. We learned about persuasion, right? When we are using these components, whenever we are presenting, whether it is one-to-one, one-to-many. When I say one-to-many, it is public speaking we're talking about. This leads to influence, right? So as I've mentioned here also, when persuasion meets presentation, influence is bound to happen. Influence becomes inevitable, right? In public speaking, we should consider that how well are we communicating. As I said, when it is face to face, in the early part of the session, I said that there are two different kinds of communication, verbal and non-verbal. And non-verbal plays really important role. 58% role is played by our body language. How are we standing? How is our facial expression? How is our hand movement, right? For example, if your hands are like this cross, which means you're not open to ideas. So whenever you're talking, try to use both the hands, right? So this is, and your vocal tone also plays important role. So it does not matter what you say, what matters is how you say it, right? And this leads to influence. Influence means you are able to convince your audience to take corrective action or take or accept the proposal, right? So this is how you're building the trust, you're building connection, you're building action. We say networking, right? Networking is a net worth in today's world. And this is how you can build network also by influencing them, right? So it may not be always public speaking, but then presenting your ideas, communicating, maybe in an informal setting as well, but then You have the power, your words have the power. The way you persuade, communicate has the power to influence others, right? So let's see how we can take this further. This is something which I wanted to share with you, and I want you to know this. Have you ever thought about, or have you ever heard that public speaking ranks higher than death? Can you imagine? As people's biggest fear. When we when we are not used to, when we are not trained, when we have not been exposed to public speaking, right? The kind of fear which we get, our legs start shaking. I'm talking about public speaking, speaking in a forum, right? So I'll show you the data also for this. The fear ranks higher than death. Yet, I would say yet, I've mentioned here, as a chartered accountant, every audit report which we are presenting, every proposal which we are briefing, and every client presentation is an opportunity, my friends, to influence critical business decision, right? To direct the growth of a business, to take, to convince business to move towards a decision or strategic decision which you want them to. So we are going to transform this fear into influence. We are going to transform this fear into your competitive advantage. And I'll show you some facts and fear also. What happens? I'll show you some data as well. So, what happens that fear of public speaking, this is very natural. If you are not exposed to this, this is very natural. This is not something unusual. This is real, I would say, and is very common across all who has not been exposed to. So fear of public speaking, it has remained consistently high across decades, across many surveys. And this affects our professionals in every career stage, right? But then the important thing is, or the positive thing is a skill. Persuasive speaking, public speaking is a skill and anybody can learn it. We are not born with that skill, right? So we all have this innate capacity to develop the skill. Skill we know is what? Skill is knowledge for practice. If we know the right way and if we practice it, we are skillful, right? So see, these are the data. For example, if you see, this was done by many agencies and this was in different years also. So public speaking fear across studies have what I was thinking, maybe it is published in only one of the research, but then not. It is published in many researches, like National Social Anxiety Center. This was in 2023. The recent one, it again says 40%. NIH Journal of Anxiety Disorders 2022. It says 70%, right? Same with Pollard and Henderson psychological reports, it says 61. So you can see that these are the percentage of adults reporting fear of public speaking. So how much it is, right? And has been consistently high. And these are higher than death. Imagine. So it is not that it happens with everyone, but then the survey says that most of us, we have this fear of public speaking, and which is very common, right? Now, how can we convert this into, there's some problem with my slide. Just give me a moment. Let me, now, how can we convert this fear into influence, right? So as we saw, the research says that around 40 to 70% of professionals, they actually fear public speaking, and that is more than that. This was something very surprising, right? But then here is the opportunity, as I said, this is a learnable skill and we can develop it. So every time when we're presenting an audit report, when we're explaining any new proposal or briefing our management or board of directors, you're not just speaking. It is not only about speaking, you know. What you're doing, you're selling your ideas, you're persuading, you're building connection, you're networking, you're building trust, you're seen as a trusted advisor, right? So we are going to convert this fear to influence so that we can maximize this in our daily life. I wanted to also ask you that why public speaking matters so much for CAs. It matters, it do matter, right? Because we are in an advisory driven role. We are in a role where we advise, we are seen as trusted advisors, as I mentioned. So communication is something through which we can build influence, through which we can persuade. And we are not only present, we are not only number crunchers, but then we are in today's world, we are AI powered strategic business partner, I would say, right? So when we speak well, when our communication skill is good, when we present really well, we are building our credibility, right? And we can, when we speak with confidence, that makes us more credible. That it's not only about knowing, but then it is also about presenting your thoughts. So, as I said, it is not innate to anyone. We are not born with this skill, but then we can develop it. And let's see what are the components of public speaking. One quote which I really liked and wanted to share with all of you. If you can speak, if we can speak, we can influence. And when we can influence, which means we can impact lives, we can change lives. It is not only individuals' life, but in lives of business, which means we can write new success stories of our business as well. Right. So persuasion is actually the science of influence, and we have seen the three components. And where does this come alive? So this comes alive through our public speaking. Okay. So when you're in public speaking, your words can impact the life of your audience. Now there is a scenario, a pitch challenge which I want to give you. And again, I'm giving you the rules. Like for example, I've given a scenario. The scenario is, imagine that you have just met a potential client in one of the networking client, right? I repeat, you have to imagine a scenario where you have met a potential client in one of the networking event, and you have only 30 seconds to introduce yourself. Only 30 seconds to introduce yourself, right? So you will have to think that how will you introduce yourself? Only 30 seconds. The guidelines are given some, for example, like you should start with a strong opening in a very confident manner, right? Stand erect. If I have to give about some tips on body language, make eye contact. You should have a very clear structure. Clear structure is who you are, what you do, and how you help your clients, right? These three things, three components in 30 seconds. Imagine. And action oriented close, like how will you end with a call to action, that what do you want uh, your audience to do. For example, I would love to schedule a session to understand your financial goals. So this is the scenario and I have designed three options of pitch. So I would like to hear from you that which pitch would convince you as a client. You're the client, right? And what is the reason that you get convinced for the client. I request you to scan this QR code. This will redirect you to the Google form and where you will see three pictures. And I would like to see your words on the screen. It will take only 30 seconds to scan the QR code. Quickly, please, because until unless you are involved in the learning process, right, it's not only about listening, it's about doing as well. You will not be able to internalize. That's the reason, my friends, I'm giving you these kind of activity which can be done online very easily. Just scan the QR code. It will direct you to the Google form. You will get to see the pictures there and share response. Which one did you like the most as a client and what is the reason? Okay, after 30 seconds, I will stop sharing this. I will go to the Google form and I want to see your responses. I encourage, I request, I urge all of you to participate, right? If you're just listening passively, it is gone. We may not be able to internalize, right? So how will you practice it? So it's better that you should participate. You should get engaged. We'll talk about participant engagement also. Participants' engagement is very important for active learning process. Only then we learn. If you're not engaged, we will not be able to learn. So I request, please scan the QR code. It will take you to the Google form and you can see the pitch there. You just have to read it. It's a small chunk. You just have to read it and tell me which one is good to go as a client and why. Okay. So I will also go to the Google form to see that what is happening there. Okay, so what you're doing, you're actually evaluating the pitch. One moment. Let me share my screen now. Okay. There are three options. I'm not asking for, okay, the responses have come. Okay. Thank you. Okay, as of now, 5 responses. Okay, why did you choose also is my question, my friends. Why did you choose? If you can write why did you choose as well? That would be really great. Okay, here is, okay, it says straightforward approach. Just choosing, I mean, the person is choosing option 2 because it's a straightforward approach. Okay. Thank you so much for your response. Okay, third is somebody is choosing third option 3 because it talks with empathy, puts clients first rather than his own career. Superb, ultimate. I really appreciate. Very well said. Very comforting for the prospective employer. Roshan followed the given formula. Wow, quantifying results. Wonderful. Talks with empathy is so true. So true. Push client first. Yes. So it is not about me, right? Me is important. Me, I mean, I'm building my credibility, but then that can happen just after a few seconds after talking about the client. Okay. And second one is general speech, direct to the point. Okay. Seems to be more convincing and real. Okay. We'll see that. Superb. I'm really liking your participation. Thank you so much for all the responses. Thank you so much for this highly interactive session, I would say. Thank you. Okay, now let me go through the question. I mean, the question was uh, there were 3 pitches, and which one do you like the most? Okay, there are responses in option 3, 7 response, option 2, 4. It seems no one is like the first one. Okay, that is okay. Yeah, now I'll show you my screen, my PowerPoint. Thank you. 11 responses I've got. Anyone for 1? Okay, no. 3 and 2. 7 responses for 3 and four responses for 2. Okay, now let's see. Again, thanks for your participation. I'm grateful to you, I would say. Let me share my presentation now, okay? And you can see here that what does this pitch is saying. Now see, the first pitch, I'm sure you all have read. I'm just reading out quickly for you. First pitch is saying, I'm Rohan, means my name is this, I'm a CA, right? And I recently cleared my exams. I'm looking forward for opportunities. I know taxation, auditing, financial reporting, compliance. I hope you can consider me for some work. How many times I has featured? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 times. I, right? This is what our observation is. So are we talking about that? What kind of problem are you facing? Are you referring to it so that I can propose solutions? Here it's a no, I would say. Let's see the second one. Second is like, hello, I'm Rohan. Okay, same name, a chartered accountant. Specializing in taxation and compliance, I help businesses with accurate reporting and audits. My goal is to make financial process smooth for companies like yours. I will be glad to connect further. Kind of okay, I would say. Right? It's not bad, but it is not so good as well. Right? Why? Because here we are what we first let's see C and then I will come to B. What is the difference between C and B? So C says, Hi, I'm Rohan, a chartered accountant. I help small and mid-sized businesses reduce tax risk and improve financial efficiency. Right? So it is saying that how are you helping comes first. So it's more about empathy. It is more about keeping yourself in someone else's shoes, understanding that what kind of help is required there, right? So when you're pitching in 30 seconds, because you have very small fraction of, I mean, minute, because 30 seconds is that only. So when you have 30 seconds only, definitely when you said that you are Rohan, you are charging on, first thing you should propose is that how do you help? Because you know with whom you're connecting, right? So quickly we'll come to the point that how do you help? So here it is, I help small and mid-sized businesses reduce tax risk and improve financial efficiency. So what is the benefit? So you save money and focus on growth. For example, one of my clients cut compliance penalties by 30% last year with my advice. I would love to explore further how can I bring value to your business. So this is a complete introduction, I would say, when you're meeting for the first time. Why? Because the element of empathy is there. Why? Because the element of all three elements, I would say, ethos, pathos, and logos are there, right? You're building emotional connection because you're saying, how do you help, right? You're quoting the number also, 30% last year. So, which means you're talking about logic and credibility. You're saying you have done this already, which means you have the experience of it. You're mentioning number, data, which means it is logic as well, right? So you should have when you're seeing a person and you know this person is from this industry, mentally you should frame that how I'm going to introduce. It's not about I'm this, I've done. So people are they're not interested in knowing who you are per se in detail. Definitely, a one or two line is definitely okay because that enhances your credibility. But then it's not me myself only, right? It is about the clients, about the client problem, and your experience of doing similar kind of task in the past. That makes it really impactful, right? So now I'm sure once you'll start now introducing yourself in a more thoughtful way, you will be able to make an impact. So it is not about just going ahead and saying something about you. Just no, you are selling yourself, my friend here. The product is you here, right? So when the product is you and you're introducing yourself, it should be in such a way that the audience, that the person or the party to whom with whom you're meeting, he should be eager to understand or explore more about you, right? So there is an opportunity. You get an opportunity, next opportunity to network, connect, and that gets you results in a win-win situation, right? So always reflect that what you're going to say. So this is how you will, how you can pitch for yourself. That's the reason we have used the word pitch. It's related to selling. And here I've done more anatomy that why it is so and why it is so. I've covered this already. So first one, as I said, it is actually poor because it is more about I, me, myself. Second is average. I said not so good, not so bad. It's like it talks about the structure like intro, service, benefit, close, but then still it is very generic. The third one is impactful because it is client focused, talks about empathy, and there is a concrete proof that 30% compliance penalty reduction. This has resulted in provides immediately credibility, right? So this is how we are going to position ourselves. Because the idea is that persuasive speaking, it is not only about showcasing me myself, that what you know. It is also about demonstrating the transformation that you have created for your clients. It is also about talking about the experience, sharing the similar kind of experience. You may have, I mean, different kinds of experience in different areas, but then I would suggest that talk about those experiences with whom the client can relate to. And this is something where you're leading with success, not your qualifications. Definitely, your qualifications will come, but it is not only that. Apart from this, your experience, your emotional connections, how confident are you, these, all these things. This actually makes it more powerful, right? Now, when we are in a public speaking forum, there are four different things we're going to talk about here. And we're transitioning into public speaking per se. Please take a note of these points and these relate this back to the elements of persuasion, right? So when we are presenting publicly, when we are influencing our audience, so we are not only delivering data or information, we are creating experiences, right? I'm sure we remember those speakers who have made an impact on our lives, right? Why do we listen to them? It is not because ABC is talking. We listen to them because we know that whatever ABC will talk about will definitely impact my life. This is going to benefit me. That's the reason we listen to our speakers, right? I'm sure you will agree with this. So we are talking about four different approaches, four different important points, which is very important in public speaking, right? And that is something which will transform your passive audience into active audience. And I've been using this term throughout, right? That I want to see you as an active learner when I say, which means active participant, not as a passive when we say, which means your laptop is on, you're sitting somewhere else, you're not paying attention, right? So it is more about paying attention, taking those things which you think is relevant and applying those things. Only then you can become more skillful. So see, we are going to talk about four different things, right? And before that, I would like to share one more thing. There are three different, I'm just making it blank so that you can hear it. I just put B here so that you can hear it. Uh, there are three different segments of any presentation. Number one is opening. Okay. Number one is opening. Opening has to be really, really impactful in any public speaking. When I say impactful, either you can ask a question, right? Or we can, maybe you can share a story. If it is a long session, I would suggest, and if the audience they don't know each other, I would suggest to do an icebreaker, right? Because I'm sure when people are coming from different places, some of them they might know each other, some of them they might not know each other. So it is good that you can have a game or an activity or know each other kind of thing, so that you're able to break the ice. Only then the learning process becomes more smoother, more effective, right? So first is opening. Grabbing attention is important. If you have not grabbed the attention, which means there we call it as what's in it for me? Why should I listen to you? We'll talk about that. So opening is more about building connect, building a hook, building YFM. YFM is WIIFM. We'll talk about that. What's in it for me? Why should I listen to Bhavna today? Right? I'm sure you must have thought of what it is not that only Bhavna is talking that I should listen. No, it is not about Bhavna. It's about the topic which is being presented, right? So am I going to gain anything out of it? Only then I will listen. So you'll have to build that why there. Okay, and this can be done through many ways, by asking questions, by having a poll, or through a teaser or an icebreaker. The second thing is the body of the presentation. What are you going to cover in that presentation is very important. Is it relevant for the participants? Only then it will he or she will stay throughout. Otherwise, no. If you're able to make sense, only then, because they're not there because of the speaker, but then they are there. The audience is there because of the content, because of the relevant and impactful content, which is going to help or which is going to influence our audience in, or impact their lives in any way, right? In any way or the other, right? Now comes the powerful closing. Third part is closing. So how you're closing the entire presentation that should be again impactful. That closing through metaphors, maybe through stories, or the call to action, ask them to reflect, or you can give them in a face-to-face presentation. There are many ways through which you can gather ideas. You can ask them to write that what is your call to action, what are you going to do, and then you can monitor also, right? So there are many ways through which you can close. So as I said, I repeat, there are three parts of any presentation: impactful opening, body has to be very relevant, body is the representation, and impactful closing, right? So there are three here. I put that element. As I said, number one is related to the opening, which is start with YFM. What's in it for me? The audience is asking you, why should I listen to you? What is there for me? Am I going to derive any value out of your presentation, or it's a sheer waste of time for me? Why should I give you 2 hours or 1 hour for that matter? Second is in the body itself. The second part I'm talking about, it should be highly interactive, right? So think of the ways through which you can make it interactive. There could be activities, games, and face-to-face. On your online sessions, you can have polls, right? As for example, I took help of a platform called Slido to make it interactive. So encouraging participants is very important. Passive listeners are not really listening. They're not learning, I would say, because only those participants who are actively involved, who are listening, engaging, participating, they are learning, and they will be able to derive key takeaways from the presentation, and they will definitely apply, right? So we need to make it interactive and relevant. Relevant, when I say, it should be related to their work, it should be related to their life, wherein they can relate to. Now, using stories and analogies is very important. As I've mentioned already, stories are like we're innately drawn to the stories. We all love to listen to stories. People of any age, right? That's the reason we see movies and serials and shorts and so many things. So, and again, it should be relevant. Now, the closing. So, opening is wireframe. Body includes 2 and 3 points, that is making it attractive stories and analogies. And the closing is about powerful closing and handling the question and answer very confidently. And some of you had mentioned that this could be also challenging at times. So, how to handle it, we'll see that as well. Now, I've given an example. So, this of stories. So, instead of reading, for example, there are audit gaps from a slide, we can share a real scenario where a gap led to significant financial loss, right? So, it could be a story from your life, story from others' life, right? It's only to use the story so that people can relate to, because stories are something which sticks in our mind. Numbers or some words on the slide, it does not stick. So if you're using the analogies, if you're using stories, people, they're able to connect. So that is really important. Now, if you see, my friends, all these four elements, these are related to ethos, pathos, and logos, right? When we are talking about what's in it for me, what's in it for me, what is there for me, right? So that is you're building emotional connect. I'm relating this back to the persuasion, because when we're doing public speaking, we should be using all three elements for the impactful presentation or the proposal. So if you're talking about YFM is more related to pathos, using stories and analogies. This is again related to the emotional connections we are building. And logos again, it also uses stories and analogies because we're using facts and figures. Handling question and answer. If you're using facts and figures, definitely logos we are applying. Now, ethos is more about credibility. Who are you, right? What are your credentials? What kind of experience you have? So if you're presenting, maybe if there is someone else who is introducing you, he or she can give a good understanding of you as a speaker, right? A good overview of what all you have done. So that builds your credibility, your experience, your qualifications, right? What kind of in which area you have worked on. So These are things, or if the which makes you more credible, your experience. If there is no one to introduce you, you can do it on your own during any public speaking forum, right? So, so it is not about there. As I said, don't take it as me myself, because yes, some portion of it is definitely important, because this is about a presentation, this is about public speaking we're talking about. So your credentials, it really matters that whether you are the person who is authorized to speak on this topic or not. That ways. So we, in all these four, we are using all three elements of persuasion. So as I said just now, people, they don't listen because you are speaking. You know, why do they listen? Because they are looking for what's in it for me, what I'm going to gain. Is this going to add any kind of value in my life, in my personal life or in my professional life? Only then they will listen to you. So, why FM is very important. Why do you think persuasion skills? For example, I just asked you. You can also relate this with my presentation and try to figure out how I have built ethos, pathos, and logos. I would request you to reflect. Once the presentation gets over, you can reflect that what Bhavna has done to build all these components. And I've done it, right? So how I've done it, maybe we can discuss later, but then you will be able to make out now very easily. So as I said, people, I mean your audience, they will not listen only just because you're speaking, but then they will only listen or the attentive listening or actively participate if they think that this is going to add some kind of value to my life, right? So YFM, as you know, WIFM, maybe you can take a note. This was in it for me. So every audience, whether the person is your CFO, your team member, your audit committee member, or somebody who is from the client's office, is always asking you this question in the beginning itself, that what is there you're going to tell us or share us, which is going to help me, which is going to add value to my life, right? If it is not relevant, you have lost your audience in the beginning itself. So be clear that the YFM is very clear from the beginning itself. Okay. Now let's see why is it actually important, YFM? You know what? If you study, I mean, some portions of neuroscience, there's a very new research and very interesting as well, which talks about that. Neuroscience is what? I will not get into details, but very quickly I'll tell you. Neuroscience is the study of brain and our nervous system. And it actually tells us the ways that why do we think or why do we behave in a particular way, the way we do, right? So it also talks about the fact that we are constantly scanning the environment. You know, our brain is constantly scanning the environment. It looks for the threats. It looks for something. Is it something valuable? Is it something not valuable? Right? Why? Because its brain is very amazing machines. That's the reason we remember those memories, right, which is related to our childhood, for example, right, when we were riding bicycle for the first time, our favorite food, all these things we remember, but then we don't remember everything. I may not remember what did I eat yesterday in the lunch, but then I may remember when my mother was there, when she used to cook something which I loved. I do remember, and the smell is still there, right? I can feel that. And this is not only me. This happens with everyone. So what happens? Our brain. The point I'm making here is that our brain, it constantly scans the environment, and it remembers those things which we think is relevant for us, right? So when we are constantly scanning, when our brain is constantly asking, is this relevant for my survival, for my success, for my healthy life? I'll take it. If I think this natural, if I think no, this is not working, this is not, I mean, this is not required for my success. Mm, it is not okay. I mean, this is not relevant to me. My brain will give the instruction. Don't take it. Just see on the screen, or maybe just leave the meeting. That way, right? So our brain is constantly asking, is this relevant for me or not? So when you are sharing YFM, what's in it for me? In the beginning itself, right? What you're doing, you're actually activating the brain's relevance detection system. So there's a part of it which always detects this is relevant, irrelevant, relevant, irrelevant. So relevant, attention goes. Irrelevant, washes out. So this triggers focus attention and active listening, right? So once the brain is given instruction, okay, yes, this is relevant for you. My all focus will be there. I will listen to you attentively, right? And this is how we build neural pathways. I will not get into the details, but then maybe in some other session, if I get an opportunity, I would love to talk about some portions of neuroscience and how it impacts our behaviors. So the brain, as I said, is constantly engaging with the environment and telling you this is relevant, not relevant, and automatically you start focusing on the content, right? And you start seeing that, okay, these are the goals which I'm trying to achieve. So whatever I'm getting from the webcast, is this going to help me achieve my goals? Number one. Number two, what are the pains I'm suffering? Is this going to relieve my pain? For example, what I want to avoid is, for example, audit failures, regulatory penalties, financial restatement, client dissatisfaction, reputational damage. There are many pains which we face, right? So is this going to help me in any way? Yes, I would definitely pay attention. Is this going to add value to my personal professional life? Definitely I'll look into. I'll definitely start listening to. So try to align your message with the goals of your audience, with the pain wherein they can see some kind of relief, and the values of the audience, I would say, right? So that they can see that yes, this is relevant for me. So when people they see personal relevance, they start paying attentions. They start listening to you in a very attentive manner. So there's a shift from hearing to engaging with you. Engaging is what? Where we talked about, where we did some activity, right? And you're taking notes, you're internalizing it. So you start there's a complete shift. They are not only listening, but then they are completely engaging with you as a speaker because they know that, yes, the content which my speaker is sharing is going to help me achieve my goals. This helped me going to relieve from my pain. This going to add value to me, right? So in a face-to-face public speaking, your body language, your vocal tone, definitely in the online sessions also. In body language, we can't see fully the speaker. And in a virtual session, we can only see the facial expression or maybe the hand movements. But then in our face-to-face conversation, body language, it really plays important role. 58%, that is a big chunk, right? So what happens? Their activity, their note-taking activities, they will interact more, they will be more thoughtful, and they would love to explore more about the topic also once the session gets over. Why? Because they know that this content is going to help me, right? I'm skipping this for the time being. Okay, let's do it. There's a small quiz wherein you can just scan the QR code or same thing. There's again a way of interaction and engaging. If you could quickly go and just answer to the question, what should be the opening line for internal audit presentation? There are three lines and you will have to see which one is correct. First, how you're, so let me put it some other way. Other way is that you are presenting your internal audit presentation is there. What should be your opening line? Okay. This is more about YFM. How will you present your YFM? First is like, would you say that today I'll present our audit observations, or you will say I'm going to present audit observations which will help in saving costs. The third option says today's insights can help you save nearly 2 crore in avoidable costs and strengthen investors' confidence. I want to see your response. I urge all of you to scan the QR code, go to slider.com, either of this, and enter the code 3298594. So which one is correct? I hope my participants are there still, right? Or is it lunchtime? Quickly. This is very easy. When you're presenting, which one you think should be the opening line? Because mostly the opening line, it shows the YFM. That's what's in it for me for the audience. Can I get some response here? Scan the QR code and you need to tick, not even have to type also. You just need to tick. I want to see. Okay, there is one response, and that is absolutely right. Third one is the correct option. Why? Because it is showing the YFN for the audience. It says that whatever we are going to share, it will help you save nearly 2 crores. So what you're doing in avoidable costs and strengthen investors' confidence. So what you did here, your audience saw that this is relevant for me, right? It will help me achieve my goal. It will make me more successful. So that's the reason that is the reason this is the YFM and this is strong YFM. If you just say that today I'm going to present audit observations, okay, I'll see that. But then how it is going to help me if you added that? That makes it more powerful. That's makes it more relevant and that makes it more impactful. So going forward, I'm sure you will keep a note of all these and you will try to include these things in your presentations, right? So now there is one. It shows that there are some examples, and these are typical opening I've given. And I want you to reflect on how you can open the presentation or how you can present the YFM in a more effective manner. So the first one, the scenario is internal audit presentation, and the typical opening is like, today I will present our audit observations. I've shown this in the form of quiz also, right? Let's see. The second one is the scenario is about client tax planning session. Opening is let's go through your tax computation. This could be a very typical opening, but then the YFM opening is here is how we can legally reduce your tax liability and free up cash for reinvestment. Right? So this talks about YFM, that how you're going to help your client. Similarly, uh, in a board meeting on control, say for example, we'll discuss internal control gaps, so which is like a very normal, I mean, typical opening. But then if we add YFM, which is an impactful way of opening, is fixing these 3 control gaps could prevent potential losses worth rupees 5 crore next quarter. So all these statements, which is on the right side of it, this shows that instead of the typical opening, we can have better openings, impactful openings with what's in it for me because we're talking about the audience. We're making it more relevant. Now, one more small story which I've included. It talks about this one of the client pitch we're talking about. A CA started his presentation, right? And the presentation opens with, we are a 15-year-old firm with experience in stat audits and tax advisory. The client looked politely politely bored, right? Then other CA started and said, did you know 60% of mid-sized firms lose up to 10% of profits due to weak process controls? Here is how we help clients recover that loss. I'm sure you know who won the contract because the YFM is very clear in the second case. We're talking about, and it's a combination of all ethos, pathos, and logos, right? And the YFM is very clear. So try to build YFM during the start of the presentation. There, this is how you can build connect with the audience. And there's a formula also I've given. This is the most important part. That's the reason I focus so much. First is identifying what our audience cares about, what is more relevant for them. Then framing the message or the benefit, using languages like uh, this will help you in what way? XYZ way. What you're going to gain is this. This is how you will get impacted, right? So example I've given here is what we're discussing today can help your team close orders 30% faster. and reduce your ear stress. So this is like this is adding value to the client's business. So again, you will get all the eyes and ears from the client, and they will get our trust that is going to help me, right? Now let's let's go to the another element, which is how can we make it interactive. We can make it interactive by having a dialogue. We should have interactivity. It could be through virtual, if it's a virtual platform. This could be face to face by asking questions, right? By asking the opinions, because we remember only when we participate, because this actually this is a scientific reason. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter, and this activates dopamine, which enhances our attention and emotional connection. So connecting with our audience time and again is very important. It's not only about that you have your slide and you're just reading through the slide and just you're in a hurry to complete it. No, try to get their opinions, involve them also. If there is somebody who's more experienced, ask for the opinion, right? Allow them to share more. So once the interactivity is built, half of your job is done. So there's some ways through which you can do it. For example, you can have polling, you can have case or scenario challenge you can give, which we used in our presentation also. And you ask them to reflect also, some kind of reflection from the presentation. So that way you can make it more engaging. So it is like, as I said, you can start with a question. For example, today also I started that what is the first word, what comes to mind when you think of persuasion, right? So this is how you can build interactivity. Middle is involve them through examples, ask for the opinion, how do you reflect? And you can close this with an action commitment that how do you want to take this, right? So it will be different for different platforms. So virtual could be different, or face to face it could be different. So it's not only about telling, right? It is more about asking as well. Using stories, I've explained this already in detail, that how stories and analogies can make it more appealing, emotionally appealing to our audience, right? So using stories. So it is not only about sharing the data, but deriving meaningful insights, creating a story out of it is really important. So you give them a situation, maybe a scenario, right? This is how the structure is. You can give them a challenging situation, ask them to reflect, share the insight out of the data, and what is the conclusion you're going to make. This is something which I really wanted to share, how we can use analogy, especially for a layman language. For example, if you're talking about the concept audit process, the analogy which we can use to make them understand is an audit is like a health check. So what is that? It is the goal isn't to criticize, it's to ensure that your systems stay strong. Similarly, if we talk about internal controls, so controls are like seat belts, right? So you hope you never need them, but when things go wrong, definitely these are the ones which saves you, just like the seatbelts. So it makes the governance more relatable. So analogies are something which will help the person understand what are you trying to say, what is the power you're going to derive, what is the impact it may have, right? So this is when we're using this actually a pro trip, I would say that we should be using the both things, use both for the maximum persuasion when we are talking about financial discipline, for example. Think of it like maintaining your car. You can drive fast for a while, right? But if you skip servicing, even one day, it just stops. So, what are you doing? You're actually connecting through the story emotionally, logically, and visually. So, a mix of all makes it more powerful. Now, the fourth component we're talking about, how can we handle question and answer? First thing is preparation. You should be thoroughly prepared about the topic before the presentation, right? That gives you confidence. Now, because what happens to the audience minds, you're not only answering the questions, what you're doing, you're actually reinforcing the trust. You are not only defending your points, but then you are demonstrating your presence, your leadership presence. Now, there could be some situations, I would say, where when you don't know the answer. For example, I'm saying, right, something very technical or something which you have not come across. So in that case, you can say that, and it is you should give a very honest answer that it is not coming to mind as of now, or I'm not aware of this as of now. I'll definitely check and come back to you. I'm sure your audience would appreciate your honest answer, but then bluffing around it will not help, right? So there are ways through which you can handle question answer. It is more about, first is understanding, listening can happen, right? We will only understand if you listen. So listening it, acknowledging, reframing, then you structure your response. You think about it in a minute or whatever, and you structure your response. As I said, admit when you are not sure. Don't bill it. Don't say something wrong. And then bridge back to the message. This is how you can handle question answer very confidently. Right. So there's an example I've taken. For example, the scenario is this is of the audit committee question. For example, in any of the board presentation, the audit chair asked sharply, why did the internal audit not highlight this issue earlier? So the response, which is not so good, I would say, we were not responsible for that, and which happens very occasionally. So this is something which shows that we're defensive, it shuts down trust, but then more persuasive, more compelling answer and more confident is that's an important observation. So we should admit. At that time, our scope was limited to financial compliance. However, this year we expanded coverage to include process level risk, and this finding actually emerged from that enhanced review. Right. So instead of getting defensive, we should try to answer calmly, coolly, you know, respectful manner. Right. So there you are. What are you doing? You're connecting and you are building trust. One ABC, the formula kind of thing which I've tried to put across is acknowledging the question, number one, which happens by listening. Second is balancing the facts with the idea that I understand your pain. And the last is connecting back to your message, the point which you're deriving. So this is something which we really want to which we really want to adopt the way through which we answer question and answer, right? So the we have come to the end of the session, and the real measure, I've mentioned it very clearly, of this session is not about what you just saw on the slide or what you heard what I was saying, but it depends on how you apply it or what you apply it. Because as I said, there's a skill and it can be learned, and a skill can only be learned. That is one key thing. Again, I repeat, one thing is practice, practice, and practice. Right. So think about which single speaking habit will I change in my next client meeting, in my next public speaking session. Right? Because it is not a soft skill. Communication is not a soft skill. It's a career analyst, right? So we need to figure out, am I using all? Am I using a couple of things? I'm going to use it, right? Okay. So with this, I'm closing. Thank you so much for your time and your attention. Let's start applying it. The best. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhavana ji, and it's again great pleasure me to give vote of thanks to you, Bhavana ji, and it has been such an honor to be part of this wonderful webcast on the art of persuasion, public speaking skill that drive influence, organized by Professional Skill Enrichment Committee on the behalf of Professional Skill Enrichment Committee of ICI. We would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to our today's speaker, Bhavna Kumari ji, for her enlightening session and a wide round of applause. And thanks to the organizer, Professional Skill Enrichment Committee, ICAI, and our today's speaker, Bhavna Kumari ji, and other stakeholder made this webcast a memorable one. And finally, we would like to thank all of you present here and helping this webcast a grand success. Thank you, one and all. Thank you, Bhavna ji.
Thank you so much. Indeed, my real pleasure to be a part of this webinar, and my heartfelt gratitude to all the stakeholders, Dr. Sambisar, Pragya ma'am, and everybody, tech support, everybody who was involved in organizing this webinar. That I'm sure participants have gained from this, and they're going to practice it, apply it in their daily life. And I'm looking forward to more such kind of interactive session. Once again, my heartfelt thanks and gratitude to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.